Before we begin, look around you. Choose one object. A chair, a door, a shadow in the corner. Now look away, just for a second. Did it stay the same? You assume it did. You trust that walls remain upright when you close your eyes, that ceilings don't soften, that doors don't shift slightly to the left when no one is measuring them. But what if stability isn't permanent? What if reality is less like stone and more like wet cement, held in place only because enough minds are pressing against it? Tonight's stories are not about ghosts, not about possession, not about consciousness spreading across humanity. They are about something simpler: observation. What changes when it is not witnessed? What collapses when it is forgotten? What stabilizes only because we agree it should? And as you listen, be careful what you stop looking at, because some things do not like being left alone. Let's begin.
My name is Darren Holt, and I am not an unstable person. I measure things for a living. I design modular interiors. Precision is the difference between a cabinet that fits and a lawsuit. My entire career depends on millimeters, which is why I know I am not imagining what happened to my kitchen. It began with the counter. I dropped a glass one evening. It rolled off the edge and shattered on the tile. That shouldn't have happened, because I installed that counter myself. I know the overhang. I know the lip. The glass should have stopped. I blamed myself until the next morning. The counter was shorter, not visibly warped, not broken, just 2 inches closer to the wall. I measured it 3 times. Then I checked my old blueprint files. The dimensions didn't match. The room had shrunk. I laughed, out loud, alone in my house. "You're tired," I told myself. That's when I decided to test it. I placed painter's tape along the edge of the counter and marked its position, took a photo, sent it to myself, time-stamped. Then I left for work. When I came home, the tape was still there, but the counter had moved again. Not dramatically, 1/2 inch, as if the room had exhaled. I checked the photo. It didn't match what I was seeing. The tape in the image aligned perfectly with the edge. The tape in my kitchen hung over empty air. That was the first moment I felt something colder than confusion. I called my sister, Leah. She came over, skeptical but patient. "You're sure you're not misremembering?" she asked. "I build rooms," I said quietly. "I don't misremember them." She stood in the kitchen with me. We stared at the cabinets for 10 full minutes. Nothing happened. She rolled her eyes. "See?" Then she went to the bathroom. While she was gone, I looked at the doorway. Just looked, and I felt it. A subtle shift. The air tightened. The door frame creaked. By the time Leah came back, the cabinet above the sink was lower, barely noticeable, but lower. She frowned. "Was that always that close to the tile?" I didn't answer. We both measured it. It was wrong. That night, I realized the pattern. Nothing moved while observed, but the moment attention left, the house adjusted. Walls inched inward, ceiling dipped imperceptibly, hallway shortened. I set up cameras, 3 angles, continuous recording. The footage showed nothing, no motion, no warping. But when I compared frames taken hours apart, objects were displaced, not animated, just relocated between glances, as if reality updated in the pause. I stopped sleeping because I was afraid of what 8 unobserved hours would do. On the 4th night, I left every light on, sat in the center of the kitchen, stared at the walls, whispered, "You don't get to move." At 3:17 a.m., I blinked, and the refrigerator was closer. Not dramatically, but undeniably. That's when I understood. It wasn't random. It was correcting, compressing, optimizing space. Like the house had decided the room was larger than necessary, like it required less of me. I called Leah again. This time she brought her boyfriend. They stood in my kitchen and laughed nervously. "It looks fine," he said. But Leah didn't laugh. She looked unsettled. "Darren," she whispered, "why does the ceiling feel lower?" We measured it together. It had dropped 1 full inch since the house was built. 1 inch is not collapse, but it is progress. That night, Leah insisted on staying, 2 observers. We sat back to back in the center of the room, covering blind spots. It didn't matter. At some point, we both looked at each other, just for a second, and the pantry door shifted. When we turned back, it was gone. Not hidden, not replaced, just absent. A smooth wall where it had always been. Leah began crying. "I remember that door," she said desperately. "I've opened that door." But when she checked her phone, every photo she had ever taken in my kitchen showed no pantry. The space had retroactively corrected, as if the door was an unstable variable reality had removed. I feel it happening now. Rooms don't feel as wide, furniture closer, corners tighter. And here's the part that scares me most. It's easier, cozy, efficient, as if the house only needs enough space to contain what I actively perceive. Listener, look around your room again. Pick a wall, memorize its distance. Now look away. How certain are you that it hasn't leaned closer? Because what if space isn't fixed? What if it expands only to meet expectation and contracts the moment no one is looking? And how small would your world become if you were the only one left to observe it?
My name is Dr. Amara Iqbal, and I used to believe in structural integrity, load-bearing walls, steel reinforcement, compression ratios. I work at St. Bartholomew Medical Center, or at least I did when it was still fully open. The East Wing was scheduled for demolition, condemned after years of foundational instability. Hairline fractures had spread through the lower support columns. Engineers declared it unsafe. The evacuation orders were clear, but patients kept being transferred there. That's the first thing that didn't make sense. Not officially, not in paperwork, yet somehow charts listed room E214, E219, E230, rooms in a wing that no longer legally existed. I confronted administration. They told me I was mistaken. The East Wing was sealed months ago, they said, but I had just finished rounds there. I could still smell antiseptic and old paint. I could still hear the hum of fluorescent lights that flickered out of rhythm. So I checked the blueprints. The East Wing was gone, erased from the digital floor plan, as if it had never been built. That night, I stayed late. I walked down the corridor toward where the East Wing entrance should have been. The hallway extended farther than it should, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. A nurse passed me, Nurse Leila Gomez. "Long shift?" she asked casually. "You're assigned to West Wing," I said. She blinked. "No," she replied gently. "I've always worked East." She walked through a set of double doors that shouldn't exist. I followed. The East Wing was intact. Rooms filled, machines humming, patients sleeping. It looked worn, but stable. Too stable. Because I had seen the inspection photos. I had read the structural reports. This wing should have collapsed months ago. I cornered Leila near the nurse's station. "How long has this wing been open?" I asked. She hesitated. "It closes when we're not here," she said quietly. I stared at her. "What does that mean?" "It means," she whispered, "that if no one believes it's safe, it won't be." That's when I began noticing the pattern. The East Wing only remained accessible when enough staff were present.
If 3 or more nurses charted in the station, the hallway lights stabilized. If at least 2 doctors conducted rounds simultaneously, the walls felt solid. But if the corridor emptied, the lights flickered violently, the air grew cold, and sometimes doors no longer opened. One night, I tested it. I told everyone to leave the wing just for 5 minutes. Reluctantly, they complied. We stood at the threshold, watching. The hum of machines faltered first. Then the ceiling tiles began to bow inward, not fall, just soften, like cardboard absorbing rain. A crack ran down the far wall, visible, expanding. Someone gasped, and instinctively, we stepped back inside. The crack stopped. The ceiling straightened. The machines resumed their rhythm. The wing stabilized, as if our collective expectation reinforced it. I requested a structural re-evaluation. The engineers found nothing. No cracks, no warping, no instability. They suggested stress-induced hallucinations, but hallucinations don't register on security cameras. And here's the part that still wakes me at night. The cameras didn't show collapse. When the wing emptied, the footage displayed static. Not interference, not darkness, just absence. The East Corridor simply wasn't there, as though reality had trimmed it away. One of our patients, Mr. Halverson, terminal diagnosis, no family, refused transfer to West Wing. "They need me here," he said. "Who?" I asked. "The walls," he replied. I humored him, sat by his bedside. "Why would the walls need you?" "Because I remember when they were built. If I forget, they forget." He died 3 nights later. The next morning, room E219 no longer existed. The numbering jumped from E218 to E220. No one questioned it, except me. I began counting observers, tracking how many people were physically present in the wing at any given time. When staffing dipped below a threshold, objects shifted, paint peeled faster, floors dipped subtly. But when we gathered, when conversations filled halls, the structure felt stronger than ever, as if shared belief functioned like scaffolding. Then administration announced full closure, permanent, effective Friday. On Thursday night, we held a meeting in the nurses' station, 7 of us, the air steady, walls firm. Leela looked at me and said, "If we all leave at once, it won't just close." "What will it do?" I asked. She didn't answer. Friday came, patients transferred, equipment removed, the wing emptied. I was the last one standing in the corridor. I placed my palm against the wall. It felt warm, vibrating faintly like a pulse. I stepped backward into the main hall, and I watched. The fluorescent lights flickered, the ceiling sagged, the far end of the corridor folded inward, not collapsing, but compressing into itself. Room numbers blurred, doors flattened, the hallway shortened by impossible increments, until there was just a wall, smooth, unbroken, as if the East Wing had never been constructed. No debris, no dust, just correction. When I checked the hospital's records later, there had never been an East Wing. No permits, no architectural drafts, no inspection reports. But 7 of us remember it. And sometimes, when we gather in the cafeteria and talk about those long shifts, the air behind the West Corridor feels extended. Listener, have you ever walked into a building and felt that a hallway was longer than it should be, or shorter? Have you ever entered a room and sensed it holding itself together? What if hospitals aren't the only structures stabilized by belief? What if every building remains standing because enough of us expect it to? And what happens when no one is left to confirm the walls?
Tonight, we explored objects that refuse permanence, rooms that negotiate with belief, and realities that only behave when watched. But before you leave, pause. Look at something near you. A door, a wall, your reflection. Are you certain it stays the same when you turn away, or does it wait for permission to decide what it is? In this episode, homes reshaped themselves around dissatisfaction. Spaces stabilized under shared perception, and a voice, perhaps mine, held form only because you were listening. So let me ask you something carefully. When you stop paying attention, does your world remain fixed, or does it quietly renegotiate itself? Because observation is not passive, it is participation. You are not just witnessing reality, you are reinforcing it. And if enough of us stop noticing, what dissolves first? The objects, the spaces, or the people who rely on being remembered? Tonight, when you switch off the light, don't move immediately. Stay still. Listen for the soft adjustment of walls settling into new decisions. If you hear nothing, that doesn't mean nothing changed. It may just mean you weren't meant to notice. This is Mr. Haunting Whispers TV, where perception is fragile, memory is negotiable, and the unseen waits patiently for your attention. Until next time, keep watching, because something might be watching back, and it may need you more than you realize.
You've been listening to Mr. Haunting Whispers, where every truth leaves a scar. If the story unsettled you, good. That means you were listening. Subscribe and stay close to the dark, because the next whisper might be for you.